All right, everybody, welcome back once again. My name is Charles White with Charles White Services. And today at Remote Work Chat, I have Sonja doing with me. Sonja?
Hello. How you doing this morning, Charles?
I am fantastic.
Good.
9:30 and getting my Monday started off right by doing one of these amazing things.
Yep.
So Sonja, tell everybody a little bit about yourself and the different kinds of work that you do remotely.
Okay, so I have a startup business that's not necessarily remote yet, and that is Plot Duckies. So I
Mhm.
help creative writers. Sorry, allergies are making me tear up this morning.
It's the
Um,
season. Yep.
yeah, I help creative writers be more creative, and I'm starting to build that out as a remote business, but that's down the line. Right now, though, I work remotely as a freelance writer,
Mhm.
technical writer. I do grant writing and RFP response writing and social media. So I do a lot of different work for different clients. And let's see, what else? What else do I do? Oh, and I try to sell books remotely too. So that's a totally different thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So let's talk a little bit about the tools that you use on a let's say weekly basis, not necessarily daily, but you have a lot of different types of work that you do, right? Some of it's technical writing, some of it's creative writing.
Yeah.
Some of these are RFPs that you're up to right now. So talk a little bit about the tools that you use.
So for for the RFP, for example,
Hmm.
this gentleman who I've never met, he lives somewhere in New Mexico, and I'm working on this RFP.
Hmm.
I am using Google Docs
Yeah.
to organize the documentation we'll submit.
Yeah.
My eyes again. Um, and then using Trello to keep not just Trello is I'm setting up boards to show what documents we're working on and
Hmm.
what stage they're in,
Yeah.
as well as all the other things that we'll need to submit and all the other processes, the phone calls we'll need to make because we need to get some subcontractors on this
Yeah.
project.
Hmm.
So Trello and Google Docs, email
And
and phone calls. Oh, and
yeah,
GoToMeeting.
and
Um,
GoToMeeting. Hmm.
yes. Like today, we have a GoToMeeting scheduled, and I will show him the document and how it's organized
Hmm.
and how he can edit it, and then how I'll go back in and edit it behind him. So definitely GoToMeeting is a big help.
How often are you on that GoToMeeting with your client?
So it depends. So this RFP will probably be every other day
Okay.
because we have 1 month to get this all together and done. So I need to make sure that he's on task, that I'm on task. So
Yeah.
every other day we'll be meeting and talking. My other client, I have a client out of Minneapolis, and I do his
Hmm.
blogs and marketing,
Yeah.
and that's once a week, or no, once every 2 weeks we talk. And then if I need anything else in between, we'll email or we'll text.
Hmm.
Um, but generally, yeah, once every 2 weeks for that client.
So being able to use Trello, is that something that he had set up, or is that something that you set up with your own Trello board and then invited him into? Which direction
Yeah.
did it come from?
I set it up and then
Okay.
invited him to come to because for me, well, he's basically hired me to organize all the data because a lot
Okay.
of people don't like to read RFPs, which I totally get. I am weird. I love to read RFPs. So I'm the one who's building the boards and creating all the lists and the cards and yeah.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I'm one of those kinds of people that I don't necessarily like RFPs and that kind of technical,
Yeah.
those kind of technical pieces. I've done it before. I'm not a fan, but I do like reading through, let's say, manuals for software systems, like manuals
Oh yeah.
for Big Marker or manuals
Yeah.
for Trello, and finding out all those fun little things in between, where everybody else would just be like,
Oh
oh my
yeah.
God, it's so boring. And me, it's like, I'm just like so excited about it. Oh my God, I don't know if you knew that you could do this little thing and what this could actually do for you. So yeah, I understand this idea of enjoying a little piece of something that's just so technical that only you are interested in doing it, right?
Yeah, exactly. When I so another resource that I use, which I made me think of because I loved reading their manual,
Yeah.
right? Which is Scrivener. So Scrivener is a tool I use for writing my novels, and I'm writing a nonfiction right now. Um, but it's a really great tool for writing documentation like a novel or a book or
Mhm.
a dissertation or whatever. But their manual, like they Scrivener can do such amazing things. So I loved reading their manual, but it's another great tool that I use for things, not necessarily for my clients that I'm doing now, but for work for myself.
So with Scrivener, isn't there an offline component? Like it's not just an online tool, right?
Oh yeah, it's not. You can use. They do have an app. So
Hmm.
I have a version on my iPad and my phone,
Yeah.
so that I can update uh, any of my novels that I'm working on from anywhere I am.
Okay.
But it's
Yeah.
also a program on my computer or on my Mac.
Got it. So
Yeah.
so it's not just it's not just web based, right? It's an actual
Correct.
download and
Correct.
got it. All right. And one of the beauties of Scrivener is that it's kind of this interface that's very clean. It doesn't have like all these like when you go into Word, right? You just have this toolbar just filled with all these extra things, right? It's kind of this open space, like lots of white space for you to kind of start writing on, right?
Kind of. I mean, they do have a lot of things that you can do, a lot of different options to choose from when you're in there, but you can
Hmm.
also choose to just see your typing screen, like the screen where you're typing, and not see anything else, which is nice. They also, what I love about it the most is if I'm doing research, I can
Hmm.
throw my research in a folder right there where I'm writing the story. So I don't have to go searching for photos or any of the research I've done. It's all in the same collective file for Scrivener. So it's yeah, I
Can you
love it.
tell me a little bit more about that? I don't think I quite understand exactly what you mean by a
So
file within.
all right, so Scrivener
Mhm.
basically on your left hand side, you can see a navigation bar on the left hand side.
Yeah.
And what you'll have is, like, for example, I create a folder for every chapter.
Hmm.
So, and that's nice because you can select a chapter if it's in the wrong place and move it somewhere else
Uh-huh.
in the list. But then also down towards the bottom of those files is folders for research or characters or any of those things. So
Yeah.
if I forget how to spell a character's name,
Yeah.
right, a character I'm not using very often, I can just kind of scroll off to the left and see their character file. I
Hmm.
can click in there. I create images for my characters so I know what they look like.
Hmm.
And I have a feeling for the characters.
Right.
So all that is in one location rather than you having to go to a file folder and open it up and then search for that content and then find it and open it separately. It's all in this one place for Scrivener.
Interesting. I like that. I really like that
Yeah.
concept. One thing that I've really started to dig a little bit more into lately is Google Docs and doing any kind of manual writing or any kind of document writing where you need to do that research aspect.
Mhm.
One area that I haven't used much in the past is they're on board in Google Docs. They have like a research tool, and it will actually do a Google search for whatever you're looking for off on the right hand side. And if you end up wanting to look up, for instance, like some sort of study or some pictures or a graph or something like that, and you could find that, you actually can cite the web page that you actually get it from right within the Google Doc, and it will put a little in the footer of the page that you're actually inserting it onto. It will have a link in there directly from where you got that article or that research paper from, with a little footnote in there for you. So that functionality has been really fun to play around with. And instead of just opening up another Google tab, right? Kind of the same idea with Scrivener is that when you're doing this research, when you want to, have some sort of reference point for this document that you're creating, you're able to just within Google Docs and within that same screen, instead of again opening up another tab and it being somewhere else, you automatically go over there. You can click into the website; it'll help open it up and all that. And if you find something that's useful that you're just like, oh, this would be fantastic, right? Again, you just like add, it's just a one button click, and it just adds that and cites that website to where you found that document, that picture, or whatever. Or you could like insert pictures directly from the Google image search as well. So it's been extremely helpful in document creation and research as well.
I like it.
So in case you ever, doing your rough draft or kind of searching around for other things that aren't necessarily in novel form, highly suggest using that tool, because it's, I think, highly underrated, and a lot of people don't know about that kind of functionality. So
what's it called?
So inside Google Docs, I'm trying to, I think it used to be called Research, but now it's called Explore. And not only does the Explore functionality let you type in just a regular search term, but will actually give you some recommendations contextually based off of keywords that it has analyzed within your document itself. So for instance, if I type in something like CRM and the title of it's CRM, and I've mentioned it a couple different times in the document, it will suggest doing a Google search for CRMs. Or if I type in, some sort of proper noun, it will do a population based off of, that proper noun, and saying, let's say, the capital of New Mexico, and said, oh, the capital of New Mexico is actually Santa Fe. So, do you want to do a search for Santa Fe and learn more about that? And we'll take you to like the Wikipedia article, and we'll take you to, whatever the Google search is for Santa Fe. So it's very interesting. And again, this idea that it contextually understands what your document is about, and then provides some interesting resources already without you having to even do a search. Based off of what's already inside your document. So like I said, it's
check that out.
Definitely. If you're doing any kind of research and taking notes, writing papers, things like that, it's in conjunction, with a note-taking application like Google Docs is, outside of just doing, having 10 different tabs open. It's very interesting, and also helps you like single down on one particular thing instead of getting distracted by 10 different tabs. You're like, oh, this is interesting.
What?
Oh,
I mean, we get distracted by other stuff.
Yeah. Well, I think that's one thing that's it's very difficult to reel in nowadays. Now that we do have access to, having 20 different tabs open and all this information constantly coming on us and all these notifications and everything. I like to go full screen. So I have a Chromebook that I run everything off of. So notifications and everything is, I put that on Do Not Disturb. And then I make everything full screen. So the whole screen is just the browser tab, the singular browser tab. So being able to take away even that top navigational part, being able to take away any other applications at the bottom, take away notifications. So when I'm inside the document doing research, right, I'm not going back and forth between two different spaces. It is just this full screen interface where I'm focused on one thing. And I think that's extremely valuable. When you are, again, so easily tempted to go off in a crazy direction.
I call that chasing the squirrel.
Chasing the squirrel.
Yes.
Ah.
Yes. I found that in order to stop chasing the squirrel, especially if I'm
Mhm.
working on something, I set my timer for 20 minutes. And I
Oh.
know specifically I cannot do anything else but work on that specific, especially social media, right? If I'm on Facebook doing some posts for
Mm.
one of my clients, I
Yeah.
shouldn't be like looking at cat videos. So, right? So 20 minutes, I'm not allowed to go off on a tangent.
Hmm.
And that definitely helps me keep from chasing off to those different things I'm not supposed to be doing.
Right. And so, have you heard of the Pomodoro method?
Pomodoro. Maybe. I
Yeah.
don't know. Tell me what it
So
is.
the idea is, and there's I think two different gauges for exactly the formula for Pomodoro, and it is a method of working that is based around specific blocks of time in which you are doing focused work. So
Yeah.
with that kind of focused work, the Pomodoro method is, I think, 23 minutes on, and I know that something's going to call me out on this. 23 minutes on and like 7 minutes off.
Oh,
And so I think it's just like a 30-minute period of time for shorter bursts of work. Longer bursts of work, I think it goes up to, I think 47 minutes, and then 13. I think it splits it up that way. So longer bursts of if you're doing research or something like that, or a task that you know is going to take longer, and
so what do you do?
you
What do you do for those 7 minutes? Do you run amok or do you
right,
chase
right.
the
So the
squirrels
idea for
or?
that, well, the idea for the 7 minutes is that you're not working. You intentionally you stand up, you do something else, you allow yourself to go on Facebook, you do whatever it is besides the tasks that you know that you need to get accomplished. So that when you do hit back within that, that 23-minute time or that 47-minute time, and I think there's also one that is also like about 60 minutes, and then I think like 10 or 15 off. Um, that you were allowing yourself to have that time that is structured for, this is the time where I could go and do whatever else I want, but this is the time where I am only focusing on this particular thing, and it has to be a very specified task, right? It's
Mhm.
not just like, here is a groupings of tasks that I need to do.
Right.
It's
Something very
and
specific.
Exactly. So you're not bouncing around. So you're only focusing on that one thing that you get accomplished within that period of time. And there's something that psychologically happens when you have this running timer that is ticking down the amount of time that it takes to be able to complete that task.
Oh yeah.
And compared to, oh, this is just the next task that I have to get done. But oh, look at these other things. So it's just one of um, those tools that you could use to be able to help just focus in, laser focus in on one particular task that you have to get done within a very specified amount of time.
Right. Right.
Yeah. And there's all sorts of fun timers and extensions that you could download for your browser as well, that and some of them are called Pomodoro. Some of them are like this tree that grows, and you actually, with that extension, it does not allow you to visit sites when it's during the work time. So if it's so for you, it's kind of difficult because if it's like Facebook, it can't like block you going through your newsfeed. However, there is a newsfeed eradicator.
Yes, which you told me about, and I love
Yes.
that thing. Like I never realized how much I go, even though I'm opening Facebook to do work, I never realized how much I go straight to the news feed and start reading it until you gave me that newsfeed eradicator for
Yep.
Chrome, and because when I started opening it after that, I immediately see the quote from newsfeed,
Uh-huh.
and I'm like, oh, so just I would just go straight to that news feed. And so now that is one less distraction I have. Thank you, Charles.
Of course, of course. I highly suggest anybody that does any kind of work on social media, whether it's your social, media consultant, or whether or
Mm-hmm.
not you just run a business that you have social media functions that you have to take care of on there, different groups and pages and things like that.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
I only go on Facebook, the news feed itself, from my phone.
Yeah.
And that has allowed me to, be very cognizant of when I'm going into Facebook from my computer, that it is work time compared to just going and browsing Facebook on my phone. And I know that could be work time,
Yeah.
but it is also, one of those times that I allow myself to, just kind of browse and be on social media.
Right.
So how do you, since you have, a bunch of different types of clients, right? You have technical clients, you have creative clients. Is Trello the medium that you use to kind of manage all of these things, and how do you, working with a bunch of different clients with a bunch of different timelines, manage priorities with all of that?
Hmm. Well, actually, I don't really use Trello that much for myself.
Okay,
I actually
it's
use
more of a
my
collaboration tool for you.
right,
Mm,
exactly.
okay.
I use my calendar.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah.
and so, for example, I know this RFP is going to take so many hours per week.
Yeah.
So I plug in those hours per week
Mm,
um, already on my calendar. And then for my client out in Minneapolis, I know it's going to take 2.5 hours to write his blog.
mm,
And, that's research and pulling up an image and
right.
editing and making sure it's SEO compliant. Um, So I schedule 2.5 hours per week for his blogs.
Uh-huh.
So my calendar is rules my world. I have to open it every morning, although I didn't open it this morning yet
Mhm.
before this, and make sure it's all set and I know
Mhm.
what I'm have to get done today.
So, talking about like gauging the number of hours that a specific job or something like that is going to take, how do you make sure that you're giving it enough time on your calendar to be able to complete those tasks? I mean, I think people in general, and I know that I am guilty of this more than anybody. Underestimate how long a particular task is going to take. Now, for you, there are some things that are pretty repetitive, right? Like writing a
Yeah.
blog post, or doing some sort of social media update, something like that. But maybe working with this RFP, there's particular pieces of that you don't know exactly how long it's going to take. How do you gauge how long you should be putting on your calendar?
So, right, the RFP is probably the hardest because especially when you've just met the client online
Yeah.
and I haven't even looked at the RFP. I don't know how difficult it is um, or how much is due. So, my basic thing for an RFP is I offer a package price for a package number of hours.
Hmm.
Sorry,
It's
I
okay.
took allergy pills this morning. Um, so I've offered 20 hours to work specifically on this RFP
Okay.
and for this particular project. So
Right.
I know that I have 20 hours to work between now and next month. So I'm giving this guy 5 hours a week.
Hmm.
If it looks like it's going to end up being more than that, then
Yeah.
I'll talk to him and see what he wants to do because more than likely he doesn't want to pay any more than what he's paying now.
Hmm.
And so that's totally up to him. But once I reach that 20 hours, he's on his own to finish the RFP. But I'll try to help him as much as I can. But, there's only so much work I can do without getting paid. So
Yeah. Right. Right. Right.
I've got to figure that I've got to work fast too within that 20 hours to try and help him the most that I can. But
Right.
basically, something like that. I package the hours so I know exactly how many hours to give per week.
Okay. So it's just based off of, kind of past experience and
Yeah,
gauging how long that took you and, you know,
yeah.
um, so with things with projects that you, um, might not have a reference point for, how do you internally start thinking about how many hours you should charge?
Well, I guess a good example right now is there are people in Albuquerque who are asking me. Well, there's very few technical writers
Hmm.
that people know of, and
Yeah.
so I get contacted a lot for new things. And so I've been asked to start working on. blockchain white papers, which
Okay.
are required before you
Hmm.
start a blockchain project. You have to have a white paper in place. And I've never written, uh, I've written white papers before, but never blockchain. So I don't know enough, or I'd have to do research. So figuring out if someone was going to hire me to do a paper, number one, I'd have to know what the due date is,
Hmm.
right? If and things like this, I'm sure are ASAP. You
Always.
know, we need this document right
Yeah.
away.
Yesterday. Yeah.
Yeah, which is usually what happens. Um, so I guess I would have to. That's such a good question. How would I estimate my time? Um, I don't know, because I would start working on the document and sort of organize it and outline it,
Hmm.
and then just fill it in from there. And I think I probably work faster than other writers because I've heard that it doesn't take me as long as other writers to do work.
Uh-huh.
Um, that is a tough question, Charles. I don't
I
know if I
only
can
asked the
answer
tough
it.
question.
How do I estimate the time? I don't know. I
Give
don't
us your
know. I start
secrets.
working on
Yeah.
it.
And depending upon how it goes, then at this point,
Yeah.
yeah, I think that you were onto something there where you were talking a little bit about like this outline, right? Like depending upon the document,
Mhm.
depending upon, kind of the scope of what you have, right? Have I written this particular piece of this kind of document before? And how much
Right.
research do you think that that's going to take to be able to actually fill that in, right? Because it's not
Yeah.
just writing it, it's not just coming up with something, right? It's not just fiction,
Right.
right? So it's about how well you feel that you could gain access to that information and then being able to
Mhm.
then put together that document, right?
I think the other thing that affects projects
Mhm.
is how many people I have to connect with to get the project done. So if
Yeah.
so like
That's a
this RFP
multiplier.
I'm working
Two,
on,
two or
right?
more people, that's two times, guys. That's two times what my normal
Exactly.
charge.
Well, and like this RFP I'm working on, I have one person to connect with, and
Makes it
that
easy.
makes it way easier. Um, and if we had, I was working on a grant project that had four different businesses involved,
Hmm.
and trying to get just one person from one of those businesses to respond took forever. So yeah, the more people you have involved in the project, you have to times your, multiply your times by 2.5. And that's pretty much how much more time you're going to need to connect with those people and get them to turn in the info that you need.
Right. Let's talk about the workspace that you're in right now. Actually, you're
Mhm.
actually at a co-working space, and
Yep.
that's one of your primary locations that you end up doing work. Can you talk about just a little bit about what the environment of being in a co-working space is like, and some of the things that you do at that co-working space that leads to higher productivity?
Sure. So this is Fat Pipe ABQ,
Mm-hmm.
and uh, what I like about work, well, first of all, I cannot work from home. I get distracted by the TV,
Mm-hmm.
by the dishes in the sink,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
so my house is a mess. That's another reason why I can't work there. I need something with clean lines and somewhere where I can find a clean desk.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so what I do here, like, first of all, sometimes the things on my desk distract me because there's a
Mm-hmm.
lot of stuff that maybe I should want to do but don't have time.
Yeah.
So what I'll do is while I'm here at Fat Pipes, sometimes I'll just pick a different desk. Like right now, I am at this little. Some people like to call it the train chairs or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's a little booth.
Yeah.
So I'll move here so I don't get distracted, or I'll move to a different clean, empty desk, um, or I'll sit in one of the little cubbies over here, the little blue cubbies.
Mm-hmm.
Um, although I really, that sunshine right there is shining on my desk right now. I'm missing that.
I know.
That's okay. But yeah, I just find a different space to sit. If some mornings I'm here and I'm working on something, I can't be disturbed, so I'll wear my headset and listen to music.
Right.
I kind of hide away from people so no one talks to me. But
Focused work
usually
in the
I'm
morning.
happy though. Yeah, focused work.
Mm-hmm.
Although usually I'm happy to talk to people who are coming in and say hello. And but I also like the sound from other people working.
Mm-hmm. So it's good to have this diversity of spaces as well as interactions that kind of happen throughout the day
Yeah.
in a co-working space, besides just being in an offense by yourself or being at home, being distracted by the things that are around you that are not work related.
Right.
Got it. So one thing that I want to make mention, I think that I mentioned it before on here, but and I don't think I actually named it last time, so I think I'm going to name it this time. I call it my sticky note focus, and one of the things that I've done over the past couple of years that I've learned that has been very effective for me is that I have two sticky notes, and on the first sticky note, it just has big two words on it that says "focus on." And then I take another sticky note and I place the task that I need to be focused on during that period of time. And I don't have any other tasks around me, and I don't have anything else, right? Yeah. So having
I have my
that
sticky note.
physical checklist. But for me, only having that one single task that I need to do underneath that big, focus on letters helps me not get distracted by everything else. And then the second thing that I've done that has been really helpful for me is I have a second notebook that sits off to the side. And anytime that I find myself deviating from that main task that I'm supposed to be focused on, that's on that one sticky note, I have another to do later list that I then add that to. And then when I'm done with that one task that I know that I need to complete, I go to my main checklist that I've made before, and then I go to my to-do later list, right? And I figure out what the next most important task is, and then I transfer that from one of those other lists to the sticky note, right? And once I'm done with it, right, I crumple it up and I throw it away, and it's gone. And it's so satisfying to physically take something and say, I am done with this task and I'm moving on from it, and I'm glad that I'm completed, right? Then being able to write that next task on. So, and there's something about physically handwriting something too that you commit yourself to much more than you would, anything else. Whether it's a typed checklist. I also keep typed checklists as well, just as a master checklist to have access to wherever I am. But there's something about the commitment from transferring it from one list to a sticky note and then having it right underneath that focus on that I'm and I place it right next to my keyboard on my wherever my workspace is, so that I am if I'm deviating from that task, I go and I look and I'm like, oh yes, and then I'm like, okay, what was I working on right then? Oh, I allow myself to add it to the to-do later list, and that is saying I'm not doing you, I'm just not doing you right now. And I allow myself to put that task away for later, and that's been extremely helpful in helping me when I'm getting distracted by something. If it's important, then I'm allowing it to be important later.
Well, and actually, so I do live by my calendar, but I'm a very visual person, so I kind of do the same thing. Like I wrote down this morning all the things that I must do, and that I should do on here today, so that once we're done with this call, I'll check my calendar. I know I have an 11 o'clock with my RFP client.
Yep.
Other than that, my day is kind of, getting these things done, one by one.
Right. So we are just a little bit past our 30-minute mark here. Let's go ahead and close up with you. If there's absolutely anything that you want to say to someone who is either looking to work remotely or someone that wants to hire someone that they'd be working with remotely, is there any tips, any tricks, any advice that you would give to either one of those people?
First of all, my advice to anyone who wants to hire someone remotely, I especially saw this when I first started about 7 years ago. I used to get a lot of my work through Elance, and I would bid on jobs, and the clients would pick whoever was the cheapest. And then they'd end up coming back to me because they found out that the person they hired, English was their second language, and they didn't really understand how to write a document in English.
Mm-hmm.
And so they had to hire me to rewrite it. So at the minimum, I would at least pick up the phone or use Skype or GoToMeeting and talk to this person that you're hiring remotely first,
Mm-hmm.
so you know that they, do they speak the language you need, and do you both are you both on the same page as to what it is that you want from this person you're hiring? So that's my definite, for a client, talk to this person before you hire them.
Got it.
Which is funny because the guy who did the RFP, we didn't actually talk. We've only emailed. But he hired a good person. So
there you
that's
go.
okay.
He lucked out.
Yeah. For someone who's looking to work remotely, I would say number one, expect it to take 3 times longer than what you think to get clients, because you'll meet someone today at an event and shake hands and give them your card, and they'll say, "Oh, I have a project. I'll contact you."
Right.
And that project might fall through, or it may be 3 months from now before they even think of hiring you. So expect it to take longer than you think.
Got it. Well, that was fantastic, Sonja. Thank you so much for coming on here with me. I appreciate it so much.
No worries.
Awesome.
Thank you.
And this has been another Remote Work Chat. We will see you guys later on.
Bye.
Bye. And done.